Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 17.1 RC or release candidate has been out for a few days. iOS 17.1 RC2 has been out for a day or so at this point, and I wanted to talk about some new features that have been found since the iOS 17.1 RC is out. What's new video. We'll also talk about the overall experience, not just my experience on my 15 Pro Max, but also your experience based off the YouTube community poll, where at the time of this video there's over 40,000 different votes and hundreds of comments. You'll see 370 comments on the RC1 vote and 52 comments on the RC2 vote. I've read every single comment to get a better understanding of what these updates are like and if there's any differences. First though, let's talk about a feature that is in iPhone 15. Some people actually want to hide the little notification bell here where you put it on silent. That shows up in the top to the left of the dynamic island, and I wanted to show you how to do that since some people wanted to know. So if we go into settings, we'll go to sound and haptics. Under sound and haptics, you'll see there's an option to show in status bar. If you have that enabled and you don't have maybe a focus mode enabled, it will actually show up there. So if I turn this focus mode off, you'll see there's a little bell there. If I turn the switch off, it disappears. So if you don't want it to show there, you can just get rid of it that way. If you use Amazon products such as Alexa, it now supports Apple Podcasts. Apple released a support document and you'll see it says play Apple Podcasts with Alexa. Here's what you need. So an Amazon Fire TV or Amazon Echo speaker, and it shows you how to set that up and walks you through step by step. I'll link that in the description if you'd like to set that up and you want to use Apple Podcasts through your Alexa device. Now, if you're a developer and you want to try and get your hands on an Apple Vision Pro, Apple's actually updated their locations where you can get hands-on time and get support from different engineers. Previously, this was only available in Cupertino and a couple places around the world. Now it's available in New York City and Sydney, Australia. Before, it was really difficult for different developers to maybe fly across the country to see what that's like. Now you can go to a closer city. However, maybe they should spread that around the country to places such as maybe the Midwest, throughout Texas, maybe the Southeast, through Atlanta or something else like that, if they want developers to try this out and not have to travel. Some developers aren't sure if they want to support it yet, so I think hands-on time would be great. Now, one thing that I was a bit disappointed about is I thought we were going to have an October event. However, recent leaks and rumors suggest that we're not going to get an updated iPad mini or iPad Air or even a regular iPad this year. So far, we've just gotten the third generation Apple Pencil, which is really sort of a downgrade and supports USB-C. So I talked about that the other day. We have a USB-C pencil that's coming out in November. There does not appear to be any additional iPads coming out this year, which is a bit odd. I thought there would be, but maybe there's no iPads and Macs coming out until next year. Now, as far as new features, I did want to share a couple new ones here as far as iOS 17.1 is concerned. Now, I talked about one in my RC2 video, and that has to do with shortcuts. Shortcuts now got rid of an option if you go into shortcuts and then maybe you want to add a folder action. And if you want to open a folder or something else, if you want to add that action and maybe add it to your action button, you'll see we have 8 different shortcuts now because they've actually gotten rid of the show folder button. So that's something that's been updated, just making it more available as far as the shortcuts you can have in that action. So that's great that they've added that. Also, they've updated HomePod. So if you're installing HomePod OS 17.1 RC, there's now the edit dialogue option. So you can actually prioritize the vocals or the dialogue over the music or the movie or TV show. That's something we had in the HomePod 2nd Gen. They've now brought that to HomePod Mini and the original HomePod. Again, that was previously only on the latest HomePod. Also, something that goes along with HomePods is YouTube Music now supports HomePod. So that's something that rolled out. It's available now and should work soon if it's not working for you already. So if you're wanting to use YouTube Music with your HomePod, you should be able to do that now. Now, within the code of iOS 17.1, it appears that there's some updates for Apple Wallet, specifically with tracking different returns and things. So we do have the tracking option, and under your orders, you should be able to see any recent orders. For some reason, I never see anything here. Even ordering things from Apple, directly from Apple using an Apple Card, I've never had anything show up here, but supposedly we'll be able to see returns and different statuses of orders. So that's something that will be great. Hopefully we see more apps support this, as I'm just not seeing anything here. Also, there's one thing I wanted to share that's technically been there with iOS 17, but I haven't seen it mentioned anywhere else. And this is thanks to Fresco or Artemis Prime that supplies many of these wallpapers like this one that I've linked in the description. So if we go ahead and turn off the lights here, you'll see if we switch over maybe to portrait mode, and we're in night mode here. If we go to night, we actually have a different lens selection option here. So we have lens selections here where I hadn't noticed that before, where the overall menu has changed. I haven't seen anyone else notice that or mention that. So it seems to be sort of a new interface that we didn't have before. So let me know if you've noticed that in the comments below. Also, we're waiting for that journal app, and maybe that will be in iOS 17.2. We don't really know for sure when that's going to be releasing, but hopefully it will be sooner rather than later, as some of the code actually mentions the word journal. So hopefully we'll see that with iOS 17.2 betas and then the final release. Now, as far as problems with the iPhone, I want to talk about iOS 17 and issues that are still there that maybe Apple fixed, but we're waiting for them to actually confirm. For one, the iPhone shutoff problem is a big one, and maybe RC2 fixed that. However, I don't believe it was limited just to 15 Pro Max or 15 devices with RC2. So we'll have to see over the next few days if that's actually resolved. It usually takes a few days for people to notice, but at night it will actually shut off, and you'll see that in your battery graph. Additionally, there was a bug with the alarm where the alarms just weren't going off. I actually haven't had that since the RC released, but it's possibly fixed, but we don't know that again for sure. But let me know if you're having that in the comments below. Additionally, Apple seems to have confirmed an issue with Apple Watch, with the Apple Watch Ultra 2 and Apple Watch Series 9, where the display was flickering. I actually haven't experienced this, but apparently Apple's working on it and has acknowledged it. So maybe we'll see that fixed with watchOS 10.2, or maybe when 10.1 releases, it could be a different build number. Additionally, the notification bug still exists. So if we swipe down here, you'll see, let's see if I can get it to do this with one notification. It's hard to show, but it sort of just jumps around like that. So that's something that seems to still be there. I can't believe they haven't fixed this since iOS 16, but it's still there, and many people have reported it in the feedback app. However, there's a bunch of things that have been confirmed to be fixed. One of them has to do with ringtones. So if we go into our sound and haptics where we were before, under text tones and ringtones, we'll now have our custom ringtones back, or the ones we can purchase. We know they fixed that with iOS 17.1 with the RC. So that should be there, and many people will upgrade now because their custom ringtones and text tones will work. Also, one thing I've confirmed is that iOS 17.1 RC, the first version, fixed the issue with passkey logins with Google. I couldn't even create a login for Google or even use a passkey with 17.1. They fixed it with the RC, so I confirmed that myself, and it seems to be working. Also, swiping down from the notification center where you would swipe down, switch to the next screen, switch again, is fixed. That's something that they actually commented to one of my viewers and told them it was fixed, and then we confirmed it with beta 3. So it's been fixed for a little while, but that stutter problem is definitely resolved in this update. Also, the touch issues I was having have been fixed for me on the iPad. I was having some touch responsiveness issues specifically on iPad and also within Safari, and it seems to be fixed this time around. Now, as far as when to expect iOS 17.1 to release to the public, we can expect that probably Monday, as Apple typically releases those on Mondays. Big updates are on Monday usually. iOS 17, 17.1, 17.2. However, they could change it up and it could be Tuesday. We're hearing either one of those. Apple has not confirmed it as far as I'm aware. So we could see that on either one of those days. And French regulators have actually said it was releasing before the 25th. So Monday or Tuesday, so early this coming week. Now, French regulators said that because it fixes the issue with the iPhone 12 with RF radiation. So they've fixed that issue in iOS 17.1, so we know it's releasing before then. So either way, expect it early in the week, and then maybe the day after or a couple days later, we'll see iOS 17.2 Beta 1. If we don't see it this coming week, we'll see it the following week. Either way, we should get right into those betas, and Apple is testing all the way up to iOS 17.4. So both iOS 17.3 and 17.4 are in the works. Now, as far as overall camera improvements for older phones, let's take a look at just a couple of those since we're updated. We'll see if there's any differences here, and we'll take a look at a few different photos like we do every week. I don't think there's any difference from what I can tell other than the standard differences. I think Apple has done a good job with iOS 17 and 17.1 fixing the issues iPhone 14s had with the overall saturation, just sort of not looking properly processed. It seems to be a little bit better. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As far as overall connectivity, well, the modem number hasn't changed. iOS 17.1 RC was great. I really had no issues with it whatsoever. And you'll see I only have one bar where I'm at right now, but Wi-Fi seems to stay connected. I really haven't had any issues with it. So far I've been pretty happy with the current modem update. When you update from iOS 17.0.3, that seems to have fixed it with 17.1. So any change there with the modem updates or any software they've updated or firmware seems to have resolved any connectivity issues. Now we know iOS 17.0.3 resolved the overheating issue for the iPhone 15, 15 Plus, 15 Pro, and 15 Pro Max, and maybe RC2 resolves additional issues as the phone is staying nice and cool. The overall temperature of it is nice and cool, no issues whatsoever, and that goes along with performance. It seems nice and smooth, and some comments with the RC2 version say it's even smoother than RC1. I've noticed occasional stutters just recording this video, but for the most part it seems to be nice and smooth. I've really had no issues with it, and it definitely seems to be more like you would expect. In fact, iOS 17.1 is probably more what iOS 17 should have been. Also, let's take a look at the overall temperature of the phones. The iPhone 14 Pro Max and 15 Pro Max have been on this entire time. The 15 Pro Max feels a little bit warmer, but let's take a look with the thermal camera. And you'll see the 15 Pro Max is definitely a little bit warmer, probably because I've been holding it. Your hands are typically a little bit warmer, as you can see here. So the phone is a little warmer at about 91 to 92 degrees Fahrenheit. The 14 Pro Max is definitely a little cooler. We had to wait for it to calibrate there a little bit, but about 86 degrees. But again, I haven't been holding that phone, so it makes a difference. So overall, I think it's staying nice and cool as you would expect. Now, as far as the overall battery life, that's a little hit or miss depending on what day, and there's some issues I've run into. But first, let's take a look at the overall cycle count here. So we'll go to General About, and hopefully they add this feature to the iPhone 14 and older models. There's not really a reason they couldn't. And you'll see at the time of this video, I have 20 cycles on the battery. So this is a day one iPhone 15 Pro Max. I used it most of the time since new, other than testing the 15 Pro and the 15 Plus. So it's been used quite a bit. If we go down to battery, go to battery health and charging, we should still be at 100% here. And over the last 10 days, this battery graph seems to be way off. So just today, you'll see it says 45 minutes of screen on time, 0 minutes of screen idle time. And you'll see 48% was used by photos. It was probably backing up in the background. 2 minutes by Safari, but it's taking up a lot of power still. Now, I removed Safari before to test this out and replaced it with Chrome, which is just a reskinned version of Safari, since Apple doesn't allow the own browser code or others' browser code on here at the same time. And you'll see the day before, 8 hours and 55 minutes of screen active time. That sounds great, only using 75% of the battery, but it's not accurate. I definitely didn't use it that long. And again, Safari used 39%, but when you take a look at how much time it was used, it says 1 minute. I rarely use Safari regularly. I'm typically within apps, so that's a bit odd. 10 hours the day before sounds great, but that's not accurate at all. So I've been experiencing some odd bugs with that, and maybe RC2 will resolve that. And another example, this was sent in by Abhishek. Thanks for sending this in. This is on an iPhone 11 Pro Max with 95% battery health. He had 5 hours and 19 minutes of screen on time, 1 hour and 2 minutes of screen off time, and used about 60% of his battery. That's pretty good overall. You'll see Instagram and YouTube are what used the most. 10% was WhatsApp. So in general, it's doing pretty well. I think iOS 17.1 will be much better for most people. It seems to be, again, the thing that iOS 17 should have been. Now, if you're wondering if you should install iOS 17.1 RC, well, if you're on any of the previous beta versions, or maybe you want to try out the final build, now's the time to actually try it out, but you could just wait a couple days until it's released to the public. That's probably your best bet, as the build number could change, and if you're a beta tester, leave it on software updates for beta testers until it releases to the public. If you want to turn it off then, turn it off at that point and then move on from there if you want to continue testing betas or if you want to stay on the public version. Otherwise, it's safe probably to use at this point, but again, make sure you have a backup and you have a computer if you need to actually downgrade if you have a problem. Now, as far as what you had to say about the overall usability and experience, let's take a look at some of your comments. We'll start off with a comment from iOS 17.1 RC2. This is from Travis22992. Says, I'm not sure about easily noticeable bug fixes, but something feels a little different as I'm texting and scrolling. feels smoother than the first RC. Again, with RC2, Everyday Venture says feels way smoother. Also was experiencing a freezing issue with Apple Music when trying to enlarge the screen from its minimized bottom tab that seems to be fixed. With RC1, J Collada 100 said 17.1 on iPhone 12 works way better than 17.0.3. It still has bugs here and there. iPadOS 17.1 on iPad Pro is very, very buggy. It still doesn't recognize many keys on external pin-connected keyboard, not Bluetooth. This is a major issue from Beta 3 last July, and Apple didn't fix it. Scott Hagel 3254 said iOS 17.1 RC is working great on my iPhone 12 Pro. The phone is fast and smooth without lag or stutter. Battery life is also very good, even better than iOS 16. I'm very happy with iOS 17.1 RC. Jeremy said using iOS 17.1 RC on my iPhone 15 Pro, and this is actually RC1, the overall performance is quite good, but there are minor bugs like the music volume staying low and not going up to normal after ending a call. Battery life is average at best, but it seems to be an inherent issue with the 15 Pro model, given that so many people are complaining about it. Anish Srinivashan 5560, hopefully I'm saying that properly. I'm on iOS 17.0.3 on iPhone 11. Battery life was pretty bad with 17, had to charge it twice a day, but it's slightly better with 17.0.3. Hope 17.1 improves upon this. Joe Braxton 4146 said, I just bought 14 Pro in deep purple. Love it. I'm on iOS 17.0.3 and battery is tight. Performance is awesome. A little lag when you check notifications on the lock screen, though all in all, it's decent. That's everything with iOS 17.0.3, iOS 17.1 RC, and iOS 17.1 RC2. Everything seems to be finalized, completed, and ready to go. Let me know your experience in the comments below, and if you've found any additional features, I'd love to hear from you there as well. If you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.